whatever the messages are or the information that we can receive, you could call it otherworldly. It doesn't matter what we call it,
That's right.
but if we're open to it and we are clear channels for it, the best way to be open and receptive is to declutter the mind of all of
Mhm.
its nonsense and all of its useless chatter so
True.
that you can, like, I feel like there's a lot more interesting things to be, flickering
Yeah.
with than like minutia or like,
Mhm.
your mind going off into all these ridiculous places. And you're like, okay, really? Is that really where I want to go right now? Or if you've gotten information or you've had visions, and whether you feel that it's, intergalactic or other whatever you want to call it, it's got a lot of different names.
Mhm.
I just say, let's be open to receiving the information.
More important even than the psychedelic experience. Individually, we have to reclaim the primacy of direct experience. As people, the real universe is within your reach, always.
Hey there, welcome back or welcome to the show. If it's your first time, my name is Eric Osborne and I am not your guru, but I've got some great information to share with you. This guest today in particular, Ora Nadrich, is a pretty interesting life coach, wellness coach, mindset coach out in California. We had a wonderful conversation that was pretty wide ranging. It is a little bit dated because we had it before the election. Those of you who have been keeping up with the show, I really appreciate your patience. There's been a lot of ups and downs over the last few months, a lot of changes, but we're getting on track. Right here, right now in Kentucky, we are about 9 inches deep in some snow and ice, and we are 3 weeks into no childcare. So if I seem a little frazzled, like I may be losing touch with reality, it's quite possibly the case. Either way, though, I'm really happy to be here with you. I'm happy to share this interview with you. Please check out the Sanctuary podcast that just dropped. My wonderful wife, Courtney, who many of you know, is hosting that. That's Sacred Space with a P, just like Sanctuary with a P. If you're not familiar with our psilocybin church, it is a community of really wonderful, kind, caring, self-sufficient individuals who are looking to improve their lives and their spiritual growth through the practice of sacred mushrooms. So be sure and check that out if it's of interest to you. And if not, well, you do your thing and we'll do ours, right? All right, so I hope you enjoy this interview and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. All right, Ora, welcome.
Hi, Eric. So nice to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for having you. Thanks for accepting the invitation. So I'm super excited about this chapter. This is like it's been such a big part of my life in the last probably 3 or 4 years. When we moved back to the States, I started getting involved with a lot of thought coaching, and I've yet to really do very many focused episodes around this subject. So I'm really excited for it and very happy to have you here. And yeah, let's just start with the question that is posted right on your website, a beautiful website, I might add, is how do
Thank
I
you.
know if I need a thought coach?
Well, I think that everybody could use someone who could take that journey with them in the area of our thinking and what our thoughts are about. So I created this new niche of coaching called the thought coach. I was a life coach for 10 years. I actually never really liked that name, life coach, because it seems so vague to me. It seems so broad.
Mhm.
And when I was a thought coach, I had created my Sesu method, which is a method for transforming negative and fear-based thoughts based on a questioning and an inquiry of the thinking mind. So I really feel that what I was doing, even as a life coach, is that I was helping people eh, connect to their thoughts with an awareness of what their thoughts are about. A lot of people think and don't think to question their thoughts. They just accept their thoughts
Mhm.
readily. So I thought to myself, a thought coach is really someone who can work with you about better understanding your thinking and your thinking process.
So where does that begin? I had this, I don't know, I listened to, whoops, I sometimes listen to Joe Rogan. Please don't throw things at me, you all. But I heard him saying on one of the interviews last night, asking the question that I have often asked myself: where do thoughts come from? How did you even begin like engaging with the onset of the thought process? When I sit with the phenomenon of thinking, it is just this stream of consciousness. And like, talk to us a little bit about like jumping into that stream and where do you start working with with people? Does that make
Oh,
sense?
yeah, totally. And, it's a stream of consciousness. We think between 40 and 70,000 thoughts a day. I mean, that's pretty mind boggling to think that there's that much thinking activity going on in the mind. And we're not cognizant of all the thoughts that we have. The thoughts that usually get our attention are the ones that are too often negative and fear based. Those are the ones that really get us focused on our thoughts. Yeah, we have those happy thoughts and those positive thoughts, but they seem to be fleeting. And the ones that seem to be more long and occupying our mind most often are the negative and fear based thoughts. So, I myself have looked at what is the thinking process? What is the stream of consciousness? Who is the thinker? And you go into a very Socratic kind of, philosophical, existential, almost metaphysical, you know, inquiry into the thinking mind. Are our thoughts generated from us? Are we downloading thoughts from some higher entity source, whatever you want to call it, the divine, God, Christ consciousness, the absolute? You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. It's just really what you feel aligned with. But we know that there is this thinking process, and I think it's all of the above. I think that we are, in fact, the thinker. There are thoughts that we are downloading from, some kind of cosmic cloud, if you will. And what I really like to do with people is to have them be more aware of their thoughts, no matter where they come from, so that they can feel that they are more in control of their own thinking mind. And there is something to say about mastering our mind. So many people are walking around like their thoughts are dragging them like a dog on a leash, and they're just accepting every single thought that comes into their mind readily. So that's why I've created the thought coach niche of coaching and also the Says Who method.
So what is the says who method? Talk a little bit about that.
The Says Who method is based on my first book, actually, called Says Who: How One Simple Question Can Change the Way You Think Forever. It's based on my own personal experience. I had had a crisis in my family. I had a sister who had had a mental psychotic break, if you will. And it was very devastating and traumatic. And I was young. I was, I think 15 years old when it happened.
Mm.
And I went into fight or flight. When something happens around us that's traumatic, we go into a fear state. We go into a fight or flight state because we feel threatened in some way. We feel that something is threatening our survival. And that's what happened to me. When she had that very unfortunate experience, a thought raced through my mind, which was, oh, well, that's going to happen to me. What happened to her? What happened to me? Because she was so normal. She was this amazing spirit, beautiful inside and out. I just, so admired her and looked up to her. And when she had that break, she was never the same again. So it was a very tragic event that happened to her. That thought, well, if this happened to her, it's going to happen to me. I buried it in my subconscious. And what I say in my Says Who book, that our subconscious is sort of the storage room of our core beliefs. What we tell ourselves, we absorb into the subconscious level of our thinking. And it's where we derive a lot of our beliefs. We keep it there. So I had this fear based thought that really affected my life for many, many years. And I didn't know that I had buried this fear based thought. And what happened is that when thoughts go unchecked, they can create symptoms, and that's where we can get anxiety and depression. And sometimes we're not even connected to the very thought that's causing those emotions. So I could talk about this for an hour. It took me on this trajectory, if you will, of I became an actress and I had a very promising career, but I was suffering from anxiety and I didn't know why. It took me many years to go down a lot of psychospiritual rabbit holes. I went into Jungian analysis with Carl Jung, being the psychoanalyst who really helps you go into your unconscious and your dream states and archetypes. And that's when I really connected to this fear based thought. And I had this major aha moment thinking, wow, I've been at the effect of this thought that wasn't even real. I just created it out of my own mind
Mm.
from fear, and it gripped me and it literally commandeered my life. And that's when I thought, whoa, so many people are at the effect of these negative and fear-based thoughts that basically can control their lives. And they suffer terribly because of it. So I created this method, the says who method, which is a questioning method, a cognitive questioning method for literally questioning and challenging our negative and fear-based thoughts. And it's been just revolutionary. I've uh, done it in so many ways with workshops. I've done it, in front of entrepreneurs and so many people who have taken the Says Who method workshop. And that's what also inspired me to do the Thought Coach program.
I did see the Marianne Williamson's on her website, who I'm a huge fan of her as well.
Okay.
So just kind of thinking about
Yeah.
I appreciated your work. How does one discover when, whether or not, or which negative thoughts are running in the background and impacting our entire lives?
I'm a mindfulness practitioner as well. And mindfulness is the practice of being in the present moment with total awareness. So I include that in my books, in that people become more present so they can be aware of the very thoughts that they have. When you're not fully conscious, you're just walking around. What I say is in a semi-conscious state. Well, that's the closest state that we are when we're sleeping. So we're kind of not fully conscious of the thoughts that are going in and out of our mind.
Mhm.
When you become more awake and you commit to something like, let's say, the Says Who method, or you start to practice mindfulness, which is cultivating a practice of present moment awareness, you really become aware of your thoughts. And then couple that with the seven Says Who questions, you can start to challenge any thought that starts to, in rapid succession, come into the thinking mind. You have a thought which I'd call a useless thought, basically. It does nothing to support your well being. There's a lot of thoughts that are very sabotaging and they really can trip us up. Well, once you're aware of, I'm thinking this thought, you ask yourself the seven says you questions. Well, an example of one of my favorite seven questions is, do I like this thought? Or does this
Please.
thought make me feel better? Something that simple by literally asking yourself, you've got some real self-deprecating thought going on, a real negative or fear-based thought, to even stop the automatic thinking process and say, do I like this thought or
Mm.
does this thought work for me? Those are a couple of the says you questions. You can start to have literally a dialogue with yourself about like, no, I really don't like that thought. And I have the ability to release it and to replace it with its positive counterpart. So you really start to take agency over your own thinking process. This then goes into the whole area of neuroplasticity because when you start to develop new habits, positive habits of thinking, your mind doesn't quickly default to negativity. You're basically training your mind, how you're redirecting your thinking process so that it goes more into the direction of positivity and life affirming thinking rather than automatic negativity.
So is this just a product of evolutionary biology that we are so negatively biased? I mean, or are we like I can see how it is just part and parcel of our makeup, but it seems like it's just out of fucking control, right? To the point that it's, like you said, anxiety and depression and these negative states that can become crippling. So like, how is it that something that was built in to keep us safe has gone off the rails so far?
So really good question. I mean, I think that part of our fear, if you will, our fear-based thinking is useful. I mean, but we're not hunter and gatherers
Right.
anymore. We're not waiting for some saber-toothed tiger to jump out of nowhere and kill us as it's dinner. You know what I mean? We've evolved beyond aspects of our more, you can call it the reptilian or the parts of the brain that aren't as advanced, and think about how much of the brain we're not using. I mean, there's so much of the
Hmm.
brain that we're not, and I think we're really at a phenomenal time right now that we're really in what I consider to be a spiritual awakening time, or it could be called the Great Awakening, that people are really, they have a great opportunity to really raise their awareness, to raise their consciousness, to develop more I want to call it like meta thinking, where you're using a more of a supercharged way, a capacity of thinking, so you really can be open to receiving very powerful information to know how to navigate the world and our evolution, because we're in such a sped up evolutionary phase right now. So, to answer your question, I think it's the way we are designed. We have these thoughts, and we can use our own selves to transcend a more materialistic, a more animalistic way of being, which we have in us, but we've evolved and we're evolving. And for those that really understand that, to know that we have this ability to really raise our awareness through raising our consciousness, which means that we can then become more aware of our own thinking mind. We can start to use it in such a powerful way, and in a positive, powerful way. I don't mean like in some dystopian, destructive way, which we're also at that point. Evolution.
Which path? Which one will it be?
A lot going on right now. There's a lot that's happened in the last 4 years. So things have really sped up, and now we're dealing with artificial intelligence. And things are happening at such a rapid speed that we really do need to, like, get with the program, literally.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I gotta say a note on this because I want to come back to it. But I don't want to just blow past your um, who says who? Because I'm just really intrigued. I'm intrigued just by this because I feel like I have an intuitive, I don't know, whatever sense of where it might be going. But would you go into that a little more detail with us?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've had the Says Who uh, thought coach certification training program up for quite a while, and people find it all the time. And even when I'm not, generating sort of like this, putting it out there, people find it. And whether they want to be certified as a thought coach or not, they're like, I want to learn the Says Who method. I want to learn how to be the master of my thoughts. Because what I say in Says Who is, you are the creator of your internal dialogue, which manifests your reality. And that all goes on up here.
Mm.
So, it's really getting a incredible like, suddenly more and more people are finding me and finding it, because I think it's in the ether. I think that more and more people are aware of the fact that we are changing exponentially. Our thinking is morphing and changing really rapidly. And, for those of us that are getting real powerful downloads right now, we're aware that we're advancing in our consciousness very, very fast. So we need to be prepared for that. And what I like to offer people, and without it sounding esoteric or unavailable, the Setsu method is very user friendly. I mean, anybody can use it, even children. What it does is it really connects you to your own thinking capacity and lets you realize how you can kind of do your own mental hacking, if you will, to work with your thought process and know how to navigate your thinking mind. It's so user friendly. I don't try and dumb it down for anybody. I'm just saying, if you're somebody who really wants to understand how your thoughts work and how to be the master of your mind, the Says Who method is pretty awesome.
Do you want to talk about it in detail as to what it is, or is that?
Well, I mean, I'm not, I mean, I can tell you as much as I can tell you, but I would love for people to get the book and
Yeah,
learn
of course.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And, it's here's the bottom line. It's 7 questions to challenge your thoughts so that you can, and the very first question I'll give that to you is that it says who. Well, says who is a very powerful jumpstart to the says who method, because a thought comes into my head, right? And suddenly I'm like, well, says who?
Right.
Who is saying this thought in my mind? It's taking ownership and responsibility of the very thought that you're having so that you can start to really understand, well, what is the intention of this thought? What is the purpose of this thought? What is this thought trying to tell me? What does this thought want to do for me? What is this thought doing against me? You're starting to really have this relationship with your thinking mind. So the jumpstart question in the title of the book is says who? Who is saying this thought in my mind? And another thing I will add to that, Eric, is that another one of the says who questions, which is a really important question, is have I heard someone say this thought before? Because
Mm,
so many of our thoughts did not originate with us.
mm, mm.
They started long ago.
That's what I was just thinking now.
And, we were influenced by, starting in childhood, when you're the most defenseless, you get bullied by somebody on the schoolyard. The first, you've got children, so do I. They come in so pure and so open and so ready to be in life in such an incredible way. And then they had their first encounter with
Mhm.
someone that says, oh, you suck at sports, or you're not good at this, or you're too this or you're not enough that. And imagine the psyche of a child, like, it could be a parent, it could be an authority figure, it could be anybody. And we all have been through that on our life journey. We can remember the first time someone said something to us that felt like it knocked the wind out of us, or it
Mhm.
made us doubt ourselves and make us feel like, oh, well, maybe I'm not enough, or maybe I'm not good enough, or I'm not talented enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good looking enough, or whatever. And imagine a young psyche who has that told to them for the first time, and they start to doubt their own sense of self. Do you know? And that's where it starts. That's really where it begins. So I have people that I've worked with that have come to me. I've been doing the says who method for a while now. People come to me and they reveal a lot of what their dominant thoughts are, which is, doubt, very self-deprecating. It can be even self-hate. And so much of what is revealed to me started long ago, and it didn't even start with them.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, even as you're talking, I'm remembering I had a mushroom experience a year or so ago where at the outset of it, my life has been going so amazingly well in the last couple of years. And like as it was starting, I was kind of in review of all these awesome things that have happened. And there was this voice that was saying, but you don't deserve that, but you don't deserve that. And I realized that this is my mom. This isn't my thought. This is my
Yeah.
mom's stuff.
Thank you, mom. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, they didn't set out to do probably harm, but there have been, things that you can say to children, oh, you're so absent-minded.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
you're so
Mhm.
clumsy. Oh, oh, don't be so stupid. I mean, you can love a child and say these things to them that really sticks in their psyche. And then it becomes a part of what I said earlier, it becomes a part of your core beliefs. Then you carry it into adulthood, and also, a lot of those beliefs impact your journey along the way that could have been real stoppers from you realizing certain things in your life, going after a career or in a relationship, or thinking you didn't deserve something or someone.
Mhm.
So much is that of that is the programming that starts early on, long ago. But the good news is you can change it. And I have another thing in the book, a great technique that I've taught, and it's so much fun, and it's been great to see everybody's faces because I have something called the release and replace technique. And I've done it in front of hundreds of people where I'm standing on a stage and I say, I want you to write down, I give everybody a post-it and I say, I want you to write down a negative thought. Well, I have so many hands go up, like, can I write down more than one? Let's start with one that maybe literally popped up into your mind when I asked you. Maybe it came up for you in the shower this morning. Maybe it came up for you a week ago, or maybe this thought has been with you for as long as you can remember. And when I see their faces, like they're like, they're all like, it's so contemplative, and some of them look kind of pained, and they're writing down this thought, And I did it one time in front of like 150 young entrepreneurs. And I said, okay, now I want you to take that piece of paper and I want you to crumple it up and I want you to throw it as far as you can throw it. And I mean, I literally have been staging where these balls of paper are coming at me, and they land on the floor, and I look at them, and, like, first of all, the way they throw it is really telling because they're
Mm.
like, I am so ready to get this, what thought out of my head. Like, I am over this thought.
Mhm.
And you see different people like, wow, that thought was really caused that person a lot of suffering.
Mhm.
That thought has caused that person a lot of insecurity and a lot of whatever. So then I say, okay, so now that you've thrown that thought out, do you want to pick up that piece of paper, uncrumple it, and put that thought back in your head? They're like a resounding, like yelling out, no. Okay. Very telling. Very telling. Then I say, okay, now I want you to write the positive counterpart of that thought. And whoa, you suddenly see people's faces soften. And it's like such a transition just to present that opportunity for them to like, oh, now I've let go of this menacing thought that's caused me suffering and hating myself to now I'm going to replace it with a thought that's going to feel better. And they write it down and, a lot of people like to share their thoughts, which is great. And I said, "Okay, do you wanna crumple that up and throw it away?" And they're like, "No, I
Mm.
don't. I wanna keep that thought." Great. So why don't you take that Post-it and why don't you stick it on your mirror, your refrigerator, just to remind yourself how easy it is to let go of a thought you do not like and replace it with something that you do. And I
Mm.
asked them, how does that feel in your body? Because it's very somatic. Our thoughts wreak havoc with us. And I think it's what you asked me earlier. I really do believe that a lot of our thoughts gone unchecked are what turns into these, a lot of these emotional disorders, because you haven't worked through a lot of your thoughts, which then, I mean, I know because I had anxiety myself, anxiety that was born from one negative fear based thought that caused me tremendous anxiety. And once I was able to find out what it was, the anxiety lifted because I had a cognitive understanding of what was causing me my anxiety. You know, the interesting thing about this, Eric, is that it's so user friendly. Like there are people that look at me like, how can this be so easy? Well, the method itself is easy. It's you doing it
Mhm.
that is the challenge. It's like, do you really want to change your thoughts? Do you really want to work with transforming your thoughts? Do you really want to commit to taking more ownership over your own thinking mind? It's work. I'm not to say it's work. It's not work. And, I've worked with people I mean, it's just blown people away. It's changed their lives. I've had people that I've worked with that have said to me, Ora, I've been negative for most of my life. And now I'm on to myself because I'm on to my thinking. And rather than just to give in so readily to these automatic thinking thoughts, I now know what to do with them. And it becomes a check and balance kind of system.
Mhm.
Like, we start to like not, we can do it on our computer, delete, 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 but this is like an actual method that you can use. It starts to become automatic that it becomes second nature for you. I can be walking up my steps. I've been doing it for so long and a thought races through my mind. And I know that it's, I mean, sometimes I need to be with it to know what it's about. And other times I'm like, nope, have no need for that thought. Useless. It's like I know now I do it very quickly because I've been doing it for so long.
That ownership piece seems really important here. Like when I'm in years working with people, and even in my own experience, it's almost as if I want to not blame, but not take ownership for the way that I'm thinking about myself.
Mhm.
And I have noticed that once I kind of really take responsibility for it, then I know that I have the responsibility to think otherwise or to behave otherwise. Or I'm assuming you're probably familiar with Maxwell Maltz and just psychocybernetics, the books in the 60s.
Yeah, psycho-cybernetics, which has been
Yeah.
around for a really long time.
Long
Yeah,
time. Yeah. Yeah. But the concept that he discusses in there of, um, directly shifting your identity, thinking differently about yourself. Like cigarette smoking. There was many years I was a steady smoker, and shifting the thought from I am trying to quit smoking to I am not a smoker was the thing that made all the difference.
yeah,
I tried to willpower my way through it. I tried to do all these, all the replacement stuff, and nothing really worked until I changed the way that I thought about myself. And that the wake up that I had seeing that was like, oh shit, our thoughts are all powerful.
totally. They really are. They are. They're I mean, this is an amazing thing. We are powerful. We are unbelievably powerful, and everything is thought generated. I mean, I
Mhm.
always say, an idea or an invention or a vision begins with a single thought that enters the
Mhm.
mind. And if you think of all the incredible things that happened in our lifetime or even before our lifetime or will continue after, things like inventions and visions and people that had those visions and created those inventions, it starts with a single thought. And it's the people that manifest that single thought that put that into motion, they put that out into the universe. That's how powerful we are. So whether you're going to, come up with the cure for cancer, or you're going to create, a bomb, or you're gonna, you created the first airplane or a heart transplant or whatever, whether you're gonna contribute to society in that way or not, doesn't even matter. It's like taking ownership is saying, wow, I can really master my own mind, which means that I am the master of my own reality.
Mhm.
And that makes me the master of my own universe. So
Yeah,
that's pretty powerful stuff.
that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
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 So before we go into this, I definitely want to explore this thoughts affecting our physical reality and how our thoughts radiate beyond ourselves. Um, but God, I'm gonna go blank. Oh no, I just had it. We were just talking about, oh shit. No, I just blanked out. There was something you just said that I wanted to come back to. Damn it! And now I'm more. I was like,
It'll
it'll come
come
back.
back.
It can come back. So let's do this. Let's talk about this idea of manifestation. This is a word that has made me cringe a lot because it gets thrown around, and a lot of new age stuff, and it seems to be devoid of action in a lot of circles. But I know that's not the case, and I want to try to help for any audience that maybe feels a little put off by this, the idea of manifesting. That there is a measurable experiential reality here that our thoughts are impacting and manifesting in the world. So can you talk about this in a way that's not, or that is, grounded and helps us understand what this process looks like in a experiential reality?
Well, just to start with what you said about the word manifest can be a little bit, cringy, or it's just overused a lot. And it's used a lot, even in a spiritual bypassing kind of way. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I can manifest whatever I want. Well, I really believe that's true. But I think a lot of people say that and they don't even know really what they want to manifest, or they're not consciously manifesting with clear intention about what is it that you want to put out into the universe. So, yeah, you want to manifest things on a material level. You want to manifest things on a spiritual level. What is it that you want to manifest? I think people really need to understand that you can manifest. You are a manifester, but you really need to take ownership over what it is you want to put out into the universe. So, there's that aspect of manifesting. I know there's a lot of awareness of, the law of attraction. We had that movie years ago, The Secret. A lot of people can get swept up even in the hype or the sensationalism of that. Like, oh, well, I can be rich tomorrow. You can be whatever you want to be. I believe that. I believe that people really can be and create and manifest what it is they want. Where I come in with my own understanding of the thought process is that I I would prefer people really understand what it is they're thinking that they want to manifest. Because there are a lot of people that manifest things, and we know all too well that they manifest the things that they thought they wanted, and then they are very unhappy afterwards. Do you know
Mhm.
what I mean? It's
Mhm.
like you can think that it's going to make you happy if you have A, B, and C or X, Y, and Z, and then you get that, and you're not any more happier than you were before you had that. That to me is bypassing the work. It's like you're not really understanding your own self enough to know that you're manifesting things that you think, again, going back to thoughts that we have, is the very thing that's going to make you happy. And if you're not happy right now, or you think that that thing is going to make you more happier, what is it that you need to know about yourself right now? And what is it that you're not working with your own thinking mind right now that's maybe telling you things like, I'm not good enough. I'll only be successful if I have this. I'm not enough unless I have that. Look at what you're telling yourself. You're telling yourself things like, I'm not enough. I'm not enough now, but I'll be enough if I have this or I
Mhm.
manifest that. So I think that that's where the work really begins because, I have a meditation that I do, which is called Find Your Enough. We got to be enough right now in this moment right now. And there's nothing wrong with wanting things. There's nothing wrong with wanting to manifest your desires, your hopes, your wishes, your goals, or whatever. But I don't want to see people rushed past not understanding their own self now with the thoughts that they have and what are they telling themselves in the present time.
Mhm. It feels like so very few of us are actually aware of what we want, of even of who we are, like as I sit with the idea of our our ideas of self or our thoughts of self, and how many what percentage of the population is walking around consciously aware that they are a walking expression of a compilation of their lifetime of thoughts, you know? And we look,
Exactly. Exactly.
we,
You're right, Eric. And what I want to say to that is that that's where the awake aspect comes into play.
Mhm.
'Cause there are a lot of people that are walking around. Yeah, they're thinking, and yeah, they have desires, and yeah, they want to manifest, but they're like not fully conscious. And that's the beauty of understanding ourselves better, which also means to understand our own thoughts better so that we can take responsibility for who we are and what are we putting out
Mhm.
there into the universe. Do you know? I mean,
Mhm.
day to day, like, are you putting out positive thoughts? Are your thoughts about love, acceptance, compassion of other? Are you really functioning in a way that your thoughts are emanating an energy? Because it's energy. Thoughts are energy. Everything's
Mhm.
energy. Are
Mhm.
our thoughts emanating a type of energy that's positive, that's of the light? That we are really taking responsibility for what we think and who we are and what are we putting out into the universe.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, I'm just kind of revisiting myself driving down the road today and if, how much I remember there was at least one guy I was like, come on, you slow poke, get out of my way, and like it seems it's not just it seems it's really important to be aware of our thoughts and just that we can use awareness to reflect on our own thinking is a pretty fascinating kind of experience and interface in and of itself, just to play.
Yeah. And what you're saying is actually really important. It really ties into mindfulness. Mindfulness is the informal practice of meditation. So when you're in meditation, you've actually set out time for yourself to sit in meditation. If you're a meditator, and you don't have to be, but for anybody who's meditated, you know that you've made a date with yourself to sit quietly and try and quiet your mind and feel some kind of transcendental experience. But you're meditating what, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. You get off that meditation pillow or the yoga mat, you go out in traffic and you flip somebody off. because they cut you off in traffic and you're like, okay, what just happened? So mindfulness is being in that aware state as much as we possibly can all day. And that's where the work is. I have no problem with, I'm a meditation teacher. You can meditate for as long as you want, but who are you once you get off that pillow or once you get off that mat? So when we start to have this awareness that we're talking about, this conscious awareness, and by the way, we're human and we're going to have moments where we might want to flip somebody off in traffic because they pissed us off. But without the awareness of that, like, whoa, I'm really triggered right now, and I'm really letting this person piss me off. And that's where road rage comes from. And I mentioned road rage in my book, where thoughts go amok in our head, where we are so disconnected from the thoughts that we have that we start to react and we can do something crazy like road rage, which puts ourselves and another person in danger. So it's really important to understand the thinking mind while we're awake as much as we possibly can so that we can live a conscious life and be conscious human beings. I mean, I feel like we're sharing this planet with so many people that are just like crashing into one another and wreaking havoc because they're not even aware of what they're thinking, which then
Mhm.
makes them unaware of what they're doing.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, which is the question that I wanted to ask earlier. It kind of ties back into it. And I don't expect that you're going to have the answer for this, but if you could just explore it and working with your clients and this work that you've done, what is it that, or what, it's not one thing, you probably, what do you see that sparks that awareness? I've been so fascinated lately with, just like myself and all these years trying to quit smoking. And then it just happened. There was some
Mhm.
different shift in perspective that where it clicked. And
Mhm.
it's almost like, you know how like when you hear the same thing 1,000 times and then all of a sudden that there's that time you hear it and your awareness catches it to the point where you can actually embody it or bring it in and examine it and apply it. I would love it. It seems like there should be some kind of a hack, some kind of a toolkit that we could give people that follow this process, and then all of a sudden you're going to awaken it. Where do you see?
Well, I think that there's a point in ourselves that we, whether we're conscious of it or not, even with you with your smoking, somewhere, whether it was unconscious or subconscious, you wanted to quit. Now, you may not have been ready to quit because you were still smoking, but somewhere there, we might not even be connected to the fact that we want something, but we don't even really know what it is we want. And that's why a lot of people show up, whether they've shown up at my retreats or, suddenly someone will go, I don't even know why I'm here, but I'm here. And they're
Mm-hmm.
listening to a lecture or they're at a workshop or they happen to run into a total stranger in this sort of synchronistic way that you have this exchange with this person and it changes your life forever. I really think that when we are ready, whether it's through addiction, I know with a 12-step program, they say you've got to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. You got to reach your bottom. I know that's the 12-step approach. There's a quote, keep turning and turning until you turn around right. I do think that it's no accident that people find themselves in that moment where they have that aha moment. It just happens. And I think we got to give ourselves credit for some of that because if you're really not ready, you're not going to call that in. Or you're not going to take yourself to that place. So I really want people to take some beautiful, ownership and credit for like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I might not have even been aware how much I really wanted this or how much I really wanted to quit smoking or how much I really wanted to quit that job or how much I really wanted to end that relationship. B- Something took you there. And that's the beauty of getting more lucidly aware of your own thoughts so that they're not so down here in the subconscious that they're made more conscious to you so that you cannot, allow yourself to be in situations that are not causing you happiness. The goal really is to
Mhm.
be so aware of, you know what, I want to quit smoking and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to do that. I want to end this relationship. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to do that. Sometimes we're so removed from that realization, we need to catch up to it.
We're so removed from the realization that, yeah, we need to catch up to it. It's like that's our future self almost. That's
Exactly right. We might not have this glare, this sort of like bold neon, awareness of it or reminder. But again, something in us wants us to go there. It's
mm,
like, and I think that's
mm,
I think that's our higher self. I call it the wisdom self, guidance. We might not know that we're ready, but we are ready. And again, it's a confluence of events that happen that put us there. We put ourselves there, but we want to be there or we wouldn't be there. And for those that are not there, they're not ready to be there.
mhm,
That's right. That's why they're not there.
mhm,
You're
mhm.
just not ready to be there. Do you know?
Yeah, yeah. But it can be really frustrating to see yourself in a place that you know there's a part of you that knows you want out of it, but there's a bigger part of you that's just not ready,
Not ready.
but the key to that, it seems to be accepting that. Once you can accept that, then you can move closer to that next level of self.
And that's really the beauty of self-love, which is why we really should be aware of when we're not giving ourselves self-love. We're very hard on ourselves, and everybody has an inner critic to varying degrees. And the Says Who method really helps you understand your inner critic better, because you don't want those inner thoughts to work against you, to sabotage you, to not support your well-being. So, even to be able to say to yourself, because also I really want to talk about fear. There's a lot of people that are afraid to move towards change because it's new. And
Mhm,
it is part of the human condition to fear the unknown. So we may want something, but we don't know what's on the other side of it yet. And I do believe, again, as I said, I think that if the want and the need is so great, you will take yourself somewhere, even if you don't know why you're taking yourself there.
mhm, yeah, I've seen that. People coming to the mushroom terrified, but knowing that something's got to change and that this just feels intuitively like the thing. So, and I love that you talk about self love. I just used the word intuition. You've also as well. I feel like this could sound like a very heady conversation. I get accused, justifiably so, often of being so heady, but there is such a heart component to what we're talking about here. Like the subconscious intuition, love, self love. It seems like there are that that aspect of the self needs to be intimately involved in this thinking process as well. So what do you do, if anything, or how do you work with this marrying of heart and mind in your work, if at all?
Yeah, such a good question. I mean, I'm very heart oriented. I always love to try and go to that place with people because I think it's in all of us, but sometimes it's got a lot of walls there and need to come down. Or it's got a lot of the thoughts. As I said, there's a lot of things that people tell themselves that's really, really, harsh and really judgmental of themselves, even to the point of some really hateful things that people tell themselves. I mean, people have shared things with me that I've been just, wow, because I'm looking at someone and I'm seeing them different than they're telling themselves they are. But they
Mhm,
can't see themselves the way I see them because they're so ridden with not self-love, but oftentimes a lot of self-loathing. So, you know, it's really the work that we have to do on ourselves that we want to do. Even if we go in kicking and screaming, and even if we go in really like negative, because we know that, we even make fun of like, oh, you're such a negative Ned or you're a negative Nancy. I mean, we know that it can be real downer to be around people that are constantly negative and they constantly feel like they're the victim, do you know? And they don't see it about themselves. And so they are the ones that are always, like you said earlier, they're blaming, they have tremendous resentment. And I know that in there, if you really dig away, that there's the wounded heart, the wounded heart because of the self-hate, because of something that maybe was told to them, that they carried that on as true and real, and they felt very not enough in their life. And it's put up a lot of defenses for them. So everybody can reach that place if they want to. It takes work, but first and foremost, you have to want to do it. I mean, if someone's not ready, they're not ready. And I don't begrudge them. I just know that we're all moving on this life journey at a pace that is the best that we can do. Do you know what I mean? I have compassion for people and that maybe aren't there yet and they're struggling. But what I see oftentimes is like, oh, I just want to be able to like wake them up. And, I have a book out. My last book is called Time to Awaken, which I wrote last year, which is, basically saying to people, it's like, let's wake up and have a conscious awareness of ourselves and of the world. But I realized I can't really, I tried to wake them up. I wrote this book. I put my heart and soul into this book. And what I saw is like, okay, well, there are people that are on this path of waking up, and there are people that don't want to wake up, or there are people they don't even know they're asleep. It's like it's sort of this garden variety of the types of consciousness that we're seeing with our fellow humanity.
Mhm.
I Here's what I want to say. I want to say everybody's kind of doing it in the way that they're doing it. And I would love nothing more to see more people wake up, to become more conscious, but you have to want to.
Yes, we have to want to, and those that have the ability to inspire others to want to, right? So
Mm.
I guess I want to ask, like, in terms of it's almost like you answered it, but I think that it seems like there are things that we can do. There are things, and it's one of the hopes for this show. Everything that we talk about is around expanding consciousness or expanding awareness. So the hope is that this over time helps people to consider their lives, their impact, their activities more deeply. And when we do, like particularly right now with the election cycle going, it's like this is like every 4 years we loop back into the mindlessness and we see on full display how the overwhelming majority of people are just like following the thoughts or consuming thoughts that are presented to them, and they just accept them as true. It's like,
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
does feel like there's a certain level of responsibility to help people at least think a little more critically.
Absolutely. You touched upon something that's super important and very timely because we've obviously seen what's been going on, for what they do allow on legacy media.
Mhm.
You don't see everything on the news because they don't show you everything on the news. It's very biased. So but thank God we have the internet now, so you can do your own research and you can go down whatever rabbit holes you want to. And, whether they call you a conspiracy theorist or not, I don't even care. It's like, just do
Mhm.
your own research,
Mhm.
do your own work.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, a lot of people, first of all, a lot of people need to be told what to do. They need to be told what to think. I mean, we saw that over the last 4 years.
Mhm.
It's a
Mhm.
full display that, especially when they're in a state of fear. So,
Yeah, but I'm just gonna highlight. I just have to, just for my audience, like it's probably pissing people off, maybe, but like all the fucking wear your mask, and then yesterday our president has apparently has COVID, and there's all these videos of him walking around without a mask on. So like, I just
got it.
just want to
Just
say,
got
I'm
it.
like,
You go
yeah,
ahead. You
think more
go.
critically.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that this is coming out now because for those of us that saw a lot of things, we were kind of, vilified and ostracized. And the president himself, it's all over the internet this morning. Somebody even did this crazy video with the COVID, the way COVID looks as a virus. It's around
Mhm.
his head, like his head is the virus. And and remembering what was said what he said was, "This is an epidemic of the unvaccinated." Okay,
Mhm,
so
mhm,
here's a
mhm,
president who's vaccinated, who, pushed that on the population, and he himself is vaccinated, and he's got COVID and wasn't wearing a mask. Obviously, he didn't know he had COVID. So we're really, really seeing a lot of things. Now, not everybody wants to see that. Again, it's kind of what we were saying before. Not everybody is ready to see certain things or accept certain things, or it bursts their bubble or their little world that they want to stay in, and they don't
mhm,
want to see that stuff. And my feeling about that is, if you want to stay in your ivory tower, or you want to stay in your little bubble or silo or whatever, go for it. But you need to know that the world is changing really fast. And if you want to be a part of that, you need to really see things for what they really are,
mhm, mhm.
you know?
Oh,
And
I do. Yeah, just like I have a very hard time not becoming thinking judgmentally or thinking negatively. And it's just like, which is part of I feel like part of the cycle that we find ourselves in is continually othering someone else.
right.
And so that's not what I want to do, even for someone. And you can look at this in all different ways of thinking, right? Because I mean, most of our differences, once we get aside from physiological differences, they're ideological differences. And that just comes down to the way that we think about things. And so if we can come to a place where the way that we think about others who think differently than us is more curious and compassionate, then we're slowly helping to bring into existence that world that we all ultimately want, is where we're all accepted.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, like, so much is sort of, I see a lot of the veils are lifting now. People can word it the way they want to word it. We're exiting the matrix. The illusions are crumbling. I mean, there's a lot that's coming out right now. That's why this is such a powerful time that we're in right now. Do you know that there's a lot of things that are being revealed, and again, whether you want to see it or not, like, you might see things that I have yet to see, and I might see things that you have yet to see. But at least we are taking ourselves there, and we want to see what we want to see. I do think, though, that right now is a really powerful time to be able to see how things have functioned so dysfunctionally for so long.
Mhm.
And that this othering that you talk about, Eric, is really important, because it makes you have to look at the way a lot of these constructs and a lot of these narratives have really driven us for as long as we can remember. And that, again, one of the says whose questions, have I heard someone say this thought before? That so much of what drives our thinking and so much of what propagates hatred or racism or prejudice or othering the other, this has all been learned along the way. We have been brainwashed to think this way towards one another. And, you look at children, again, you have kids, I have kids. Look at children, just observe them, especially when they're young. Look at when they like other kids. They don't go up to each other and go, "Hey, so what are your political beliefs and what religion are you?" And are you vegan or are you a carnivore? Like, they don't do that. They're like, they just vibe each other, and they go out and they're like, they just like each other without knowing anything about each other. That's who we are. And,
Mhm.
if you want to get kind of existential or philosophical or metaphysical about it, it's like, why is this world, whatever this is, this incarnation that we're in, who's been running the show to have us believe so much of what we believe, that we're removing ourselves from this being heaven on earth? That we're removing ourselves from, like, what do we think, we're gonna get so bored if we just love one another and we just walk around like this is paradise? Like, why is it designed to have this? And by the way, I personally feel in the last 4 years, the polarization has been deliberate. It's
Mhm. Mhm.
driven, it's been manipulated. I mean, it's really caused us more polarization than ever I can remember. And
Mhm.
this has been going on. This has really been heightened over the last 4 years. So the othering has really been very present in our dynamics. And I, like it's just based on lies, I feel.
No, yeah, I agree. I would agree on that. So you brought up this like comparison kids and kids firing on each other. My question that comes up with that is for me as a habitual overthinker, I have not historically been able to vibe. Now that's changing significantly over the years. I'm getting much more vivacious. But I wonder, how can we talk about this potential for thoughts to get so much in the way of that direct experience? I mean, how do we limit overthinking? We've talked about changing our thinking and thinking different thoughts, but when it is nonstop thinking, like how does someone manage that?
Well, I mean, I think it's again the awareness of like, what is my overthinking about? I love to just be aware of my own thinking mind. I'm like, if I'm looping or I'm like, you know, feeling something, I shared something the other day with a friend of mine. I said, wow, I found myself thinking something the other day, which seemed to me like in my own way, I was doing the very thing that the other side of this narrative is doing. And what I mean about that is like, right now, let's just call it for what it is. I mean, we're in this whole political fervor frenzy thing that's happening. The debates happened, and that really tripped people up, and look at the way it's designed. It's like, you're on the left, or you're on the right, and I happen to be a good friend of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I don't want to get into a whole political thing here, and I don't care what political belief someone has or what side or non-side that they're on, but I worked with Bobby. I was on the board of his organization, Children to Health Defense, before he announced that he was running for president. He's a remarkable, remarkable man in so many ways and has stood up for truth. And he's just incredibly honorable. And when he was at the helm of the environmental organization, the River Keepers, which was about cleaning up the Hudson River, and, thank God for that, because you couldn't swim in the Hudson River because it was so ridden with toxicity and the salmon were full of mercury. Well, they like to call Bobby an anti-vaxxer, but he said, when I cleaned up the river, they didn't call me anti-salmon. Like political.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, without going into a whole other direction. So I, I know Bobby. I support Bobby. I think he's an awesome human being. I think the way the Democratic or the DNC has treated him has been egregious. It's just been disgusting the way he's been treated, which is why he had to run as an independent, because his own party was despicable to him. So I don't want to, again, this is what happens when you start to talk politics. Because I bring up somebody and that someone might not like, and they're like, oh, you're a this and you're a that, and you're on this side and I'm on that side. Go ahead.
He is a great example, though, of how our thinking has been dictated by outside forces.
Yes.
Because just like you said, I mean, he is he is the standard in my mind right now for what we should have as an American politician. The fact that he owns his addiction, the fact that he has been just as fucking transparent and has fought like the air, like,
Thank you.
so I don't know 100%, but it really is interesting how he highlights, because like you said, like, Scott, as you're alluding to, I feel like is that 10 years ago, everything that he stands for would have been what the Democratic Party would have been extolling, right? But now our thoughts have been so controlled around this narrative that we can't even see that he like that was the standard.
Thank you, Eric. I mean, yes, now that we've gone here, first of all, there are people, which is so insane. There are people that don't even know he's running for president because they've not allowed him to be on legacy media. And only now, because his polls have shown a favorability, towards him that he's being interviewed by people that wanted nothing to do with him
Mhm.
up until now, which is really, again, disgusting, that they would
Mhm.
not interview. They just try to like make him go away, like,
Mhm.
or discredit him, or call him a conspiracy theorist, or all the horrible low brow things they did to
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
guy. And I feel even till today there are people, like I had somebody call me the other day, and again, whether they're afraid of Biden or they're afraid of Trump, and whether I hear it from both sides, I'm like, well, what about Bobby? If you can't stand Biden, or you're Trump deranged, or you hate the man every time his name is mentioned, well, there is another person that's running for president. There's other people, but Bobby in particular, and they're like, it short circuits them. Like, well, but
Mhm. It does.
well, he's an anti-vaxxer, or he's an independent. I'm a Democrat, or I'm a look at how automatic we go
Yeah.
into these very fixed boxes
Mhm.
of, like, we can't think larger or more expansively than that. And they'd rather complain about how horrible these two candidates are, Biden or Trump. And then here's this third party candidate that they don't even acknowledge. And that's all by design, because they don't
Mhm.
allow for Bobby to be part of the system.
Tell
They
them
don't
thing.
they don't let him participate because he's a truth sayer. And, we know how that goes.
Well, again, this is how you control thinking, right? Is you provide this or the other. You have this choice or the other, and then it's the illusion of choice.
Right.
We don't
Exactly.
actually, we're not actually given choice. And so that's how I feel like in in my lifetime. I mean, I've been registered independent since I was 18 years old. I saw my parents were so crazy Republican that I was just like, this isn't right. There's no way that either one of these are the only option. And I want to think for myself. And political landscape is where I find this process or the exploration of thought being some of the most fascinating place to study. So, for instance, my father-in-law, who I love dearly, we were watching the Super Bowl and an RFK ad came on, and it didn't even have words. It just had, and he goes, "Oh, this motherfucker," and just fucking bullshit. I was like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" So I let it sit, and I didn't say anything. And then a few weeks later, I came back and just kind of started to have a conversation and ask some questions, about what we're seeing out of the president's health and whatnot. And he was like, "Eric, you're not going to change my mind. You're not going to change my mind." And first of all, I wasn't trying to change his mind. I was just trying to have a conversation. But when he said that, I thought, gosh, this is the epidemic, is that we're in an epidemic of I'm not going to think about things other than the way I have always thought about them. And like, no wonder we have an epidemic of Alzheimer's and dementia.
That's right. Whoa. Yeah, you know what, Eric? You are so right on about this, because it really ruffles people's feathers to the point where you see them go into such reactive mode of such hate. And
Mhm.
you're like, well, where does this even come from? I mean, it's okay if you don't like a particular,
Mhm. Mhm. For sure.
but there's something else that's fueling that. There's
Mhm.
something else that's going on. Plus, a lot of the media, which has so poisoned Bobby's reputation, they've did everything they possibly can to convince you that Bobby is an anti-vaxxer. He
Mhm.
himself is vaccinated. He might not be. He doesn't maybe believe in the COVID vaccine, but he's not an anti-vaxxer. He wants vaccines to be regulated. He
Mhm.
wants them to be safer. He wants to address the thimerosal, the mercury that's in. I mean, wouldn't you want that? People, wouldn't you want the vaccines to be better than they are now? But look at how they propagated this propaganda about him to discredit him. I mean, it's such an ugly game, the way.
Mhm.
So even someone like your father-in-law, who I'm sure is a perfectly nice person,
Mhm.
but I've seen people become literally undone,
Mhm.
whether they get undone by talking about Trump or about Bobby. It seems to me that Trump and Bobby really evokes like some kind of visceral hostility in people.
Yeah, I wonder if it is because they trod at the um what we've been told to think. Because so much of our world around us, particularly in the U.S., but I mean, we lived in Jamaica, a third world country, lived there for 7 years, and that culture is still trying to tell the individuals what to think. And so that's why I'm so curious, like in your work and in this conversation, it feels like so much of awakening and thought development um, I don't want to say should, but could be directed towards escaping these imposed ideologies that are they're plain and simple mind control.
Totally.
It's just mind
Totally.
control.
Yeah. No, you're right. And also, listen, people just they want to be told what to think. That's
Mhm.
why, you take something like the Says Who method, which is really saying, hey, people, think for yourself, and not only think for yourself, but be responsible for the thoughts that you have. And it might change your life for the better. Hey, that's a thought. That's the thing right there. And, people need to be told what to think, what to believe, what to do, who to vote for, who to hate. I mean, like, really? Can you not think for yourself? Is thinking for yourself that much of hard work for you to do that you would rather be that lazy and just hand it over to let so-called powers that be? What we saw over the last 4 years was a lot of so-called powers that be and people that were in authority positions telling us what was best for us. And we're like, oh, okay, well, the government tells us that. And well, okay, this organization told me to do that. So I guess it must be right. Well, if we've learned anything over the last 4 years is that, guess what? I know it's hard to say this and it ruffles a lot of people's feathers when you say, well, maybe they don't have your best interests at heart.
Oh,
And maybe you need to take responsibility and think for yourself and make decisions and choices based on what feels authentic to you, even if it goes against, well, my government told me this and my president told me this, or this health organization told me this, so it must be true. To quote my book, but period. Oh, and you could put whatever spin on that you want. You know what I mean? You could put so, if we've learned anything from the last 4 years is like, come on, people, you got to think for yourself.
well, it would seem that way, but at the same time, I mean, there's a gradual awakening. But I do wonder how frustrating it must be at times for you and working with clients that because or maybe they're at a point where they don't want to be told what to think. Maybe people are coming to you, you're getting a little bit of a skewed perspective, but I would imagine that a lot of people come to you wanting to be told what to think.
That I'm not the right person to come to if you want me to tell you what to think, but I am the right person to come to empower you to think for yourself and to really know how to best work with your thinking mind. Like
Mhm.
I love empowering people.
Yes.
I want to see people be the masters of themselves. I want them to gain mastership over the thinking mind. So I'm that person. I had a very successful career as a life coach for several years. And what I realized is there were a lot of people that just wanted to pay me a lot of money so they could just bitch,
Mhm.
complain, and
Mhm.
stay on that hamster wheel. And, if they're a therapist or psychoanalyst that want to do that, that's fine. And that's their business. I don't want to be the person that's going to support you going on these loops of thinking and not wanting to change your thinking. That's the person I am. I want to help you again master your thinking mind in the best way possible.
Mhm.
You-
Mhm.
And you just see it. You see it out in the world. You just see that there are people that are not wanting to take responsibility. But I will say this, with a lot of the ways things are coming out now, a lot of the truth is coming out in a lot of areas. And there are people, good people, good people. I'm not saying these are bad people. I'm like good people that just believed what was told to them.
Mhm.
Like, oh,
For
well,
sure.
my president told me to do this, or the government told me, or this health organization told me to do this. So I did it, or I did it because I believed it, or I needed to keep my job, or I didn't want to be ostracized. I'm hearing a lot of those people speak up now, and they're like, they feel really lied to,
Mm.
and they feel saddened by the fact that they didn't trust their own instincts. and trust that they didn't have to give in to, other people telling them what to think. A lot of people are coming on to that now. A lot of people.
So what do we do with this potential to feel maybe shame or guilt about our past ways of thinking? Once we start to move, do you have a process, or how do you coach people in terms of, yeah, forgiving that old self or grieving that
Forgiveness.
old self?
Forgiveness is really powerful. Forgiveness is super powerful. And this doesn't work to do to shame yourself or to begrudge your decisions or even lament your past thinking, because the beauty of being in present moment is, which is the hardest place for us to be. A study out of Harvard cites that our mind wanders over 50% of the time. And oftentimes we're either lamenting the past or, oh, I should have done this. And if only this were different. And why wasn't I? And why didn't that happen? Or we're projecting onto the future with anxiety, to be present and really, even if we're aware of any kind of judgment of self, this isn't what the work is about. The work isn't about judging. The work is about accepting. And again, the very first question of the Sesu method is, says who is saying this thought in my mind? I am. I am saying this thought to myself, even if it's a thought that is not about self love or it's about harsh judgment, or even if it's about hate. That's a real powerful place to come to go like, whoa, look at what I'm telling myself. I'm not really giving myself much self love right now. Let me look at that and let me work with that and let me change that. And how am I going to change that? I'm going to change my thinking. And my thinking is now going to start supporting me to love myself better and to think I'm worthy and to really help me reach my goals that maybe I haven't been able to reach for so long, but I'm ready to do that now.
So, or do you think, is it easier to become aware of how we're thinking about the outside world, or easier to become aware of how we're thinking about ourselves?
I think that once we start to really put ourselves on the path of awareness, we are really saying to ourselves, I want to like, take off these rose colored glasses and I want to really see things for what they are. So that to me covers a wide territory. It covers self awareness, which is self realization, which I think is to me the most powerful path to be on one's life journey, because don't you really want to know who you are before you take your last breath? Like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? What am I here for? Am I here just to suck the energy out of a room, or just to walk around in a kind of a half conscious state, or like in a trance, like a zombie? So self-awareness is part of the awareness package. It's like when you start to embark on the journey of awareness, mindful awareness, mindfulness is the present moment awareness of self, other, our environment, and the world.
Mm.
So it's a really big, framework of awareness. And it's a really powerful journey. And I'm not going to say there aren't bumps along the way, or there aren't some, really hard roads that you walk on, but I can tell you the rewards of a life filled with awareness is so much richer than not being a self-aware human being.
Oh, I remember when my now wife first brought to my awareness my self-talk. It was amazing to me that I had not been aware of the fact that I just talked to myself so poorly. And after waking up to that and deciding consciously to change, there were so many bumps along the way. Because to an extent, as you expand awareness, you potentially expand suffering as well, right? And so as I became more aware of the impact that this self-talk, these thoughts about myself were having on me, then I actually suffered more for a while. Um, and even as, working through that and progressing, the backsliding and finding myself again, falling in old habits, there was a real potential for me to kind of, for my personal growth, to become another source of suffering if I allowed it to. But the way that we can recontextualize and think about our experience in this kind of evolving way. It's so fascinating to me how just one little thought can shift another little thought or experience in the future, and that slowly compounds until this eventual what I call a landslide of awareness.
Absolutely. And the beauty of the journey, a life journey, is that we can wake up at any given time. It doesn't matter where you're at in your life. It doesn't matter how old you are. We know historically, even if we look at people throughout history, whether they were prophets or they were sinners that became saints, I mean, that your life can change just like that because you're ready for it to change. It's like what I said earlier about being ready. And that's the beauty of this journey, is that you can literally be born again. And if you want to put that in a religious context, or that's your way of rebirthing, there's many ways to rebirth, whether you're rebirthing, through God, through Christ, through religion, through spirituality, through plant medicine, or, the type of work that you've been doing, Eric, with psilocybin. People can have an aha moment. They can have an awakening. Even Bill Wilson, the creator of AA, he had a mystical experience. I have a book called Mindfulness and Mysticism, which really took me into an incredible place of really understanding how we can go into these areas that are of the divine, that we can take ourselves to places that we might not see visibly, but it really is in those areas that transform us into a whole new person. And that's the beauty of the life journey, that it can change just like that.
That is so beautiful and so true. And I would love it if you might talk a little bit more about some of that, how awareness beyond physical, the supernatural, or the intuition, or where when awareness expands beyond this kind of localized version of self, and we can start to engage with intelligence that is beyond form even. I don't know. Can you talk to that?
Can talk a little bit about it. I mean, when I wrote Mindfulness and Mysticism, I really wanted to explore the realm of the mystical experience. And what I say is I wanted to demystify the mystical experience. Because when you talk to people and you say, um, well, tell me an experience that you've had that's really been like powerful for you, that's really been like, you know, you can say magical or mystical or otherworldly, that people have had an experience that they didn't even know what it was they were having. That they knew that they were, some people have had out of body experiences, or near death experiences. There's a lot of ways to have a mystical experience. And I share in my book, Mindfulness and Mysticism, when I was a little girl, I would feel this, like, I feel like I would go into this magical place, but I didn't know where I was going. But it felt like I was young, so I didn't have words to express it. I didn't know where I was going. But what I was imbibing, that's why children can go, again, bringing back to
Hmm.
children, they can go into imaginary places. They can go into these imaginary worlds. Well, where are they going? They're allowing themselves to, what word I use in one of my books called free falling, where we allow ourselves to just free fall into the experience and let it take us wherever it's going to take us. So there are descriptions of that, and I explored the mystical world, or mystics that lived, and um, Evelyn Underhill, who was a Christian mystic, and different mystics and their mystical experiences, like Bill Wilson, who wasn't a mystic but had a mystical experience that got him to be sober, which enabled him to create Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. That we have the ability to go into these places that have been called from a psychological point of view, the numinous experience, or the oceanic feeling, which I was feeling as a child, like these waves of like bliss. And in my work, I've been asked to do my work in the area of addiction. I did a series of Says Who for the Addictive Personality, because, I do talk about my idea of, when I think of people who want to get high, the word high is, you want to go higher. Well, where is higher? Higher can be a lot of things. I mean, you're using a drug to take you into a higher realm of consciousness, and I'm not talking about therapeutic drugs or using drugs for, as you are very versed in the area of microdosing. I'm talking about the misuse of drugs and more in the area of addiction for people who are escaping what they're escaping, to take them out of their misery, to bring them into a higher state. But to me, that's a higher state of consciousness, or connecting more to the divine or God or whatever you want to call it. And that's the way they do it. They go through that, which can be even fatal. You're going through that to reach something that you can reach in other ways. So I explore the mystical experience because I think that we can all have a mystical experience, and we've had mystical experiences and we didn't even know what to call it. That it's more of the invisible. It's more of what we can't maybe always put into words. But we know that it is something that connects us to something higher.
Yeah, I'm curious about the relationship of thought to mystical experience or to the ineffable. Is um, thought doesn't, I think I'm kind of sitting with my experience here. Like I have found places within meditation or within mushrooms or other psychedelics where there seems to be no thought, but awareness is still present. Mhm. Is that true? I'm asking myself, is that true? I mean, I'm now asking you, or is that,
Yeah, yeah, you're touching upon some really good stuff. Like, yeah, there's that great Buddhist concept of the thought, the space between the thoughts. Like, what is that space between two thoughts? Or when we go into, and this is again is going into the area of the numinous or the mystical or bliss or euphoria or the ineffable, as you say, and I use that word as well in my book. There is a space, and that space can be opened up and taken into a wider realm of understanding. That's why meditation is attractive to a lot of people, because, or breath work. Do you know that you're transcending thought so that you can access that no thought space? I mean, the goal for a lot of people with meditation is to quiet the mind. Well, you can quiet the mind to the point where, like, there are many people who experience, like, they don't even know where they went. They went into that altered state of consciousness because it was a non-thinking state, and have described it in all sorts of beatific ways, like, "Whoa, what was that? That was really beautiful or really powerful," and that brings up the whole concept of oneness, which again, you juxtapose oneness, which connects us to all sentient beings, that we're really all connected, but the way this is designed is to separate us. So the freedom of thought is to say, well, I don't buy into that thinking. That's just been told to me. I believe in oneness. I believe in connecting and connectedness. And I don't believe in separating myself from the other or anything really. So you experience that oftentimes on drugs. Again, if you're using things like plant medicine or psilocybin or drugs to be able to have a deeper self journey. Again, just so that we can delineate between the drug use of addiction versus the drug of transcendence, drug use for transcendental reasons. And so, yeah, what is that space, that non-thinking space? Well, we can get glimpses of it. We can have fleeting moments of it. And what the I think the challenge of being in the body. I love that quote by French philosopher mystic Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So we're in the body. We're having this physical experience. We're in the material world, but we have these fleeting, awareness, aha moments. And my interest is like, how do you make that the experience, the more of the life experience, not less of the life experience. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, I'm finding myself feeling thought as this kind of middle ground between the immaterial and the material, the spiritual world and the material world. And
Right.
even as you were talking earlier, in terms of manifestation and thoughts coming into things, it continues to raise the question for me as to, the origin of thoughts, things that we can do to put ourselves in company of better thoughts. I find that I have better thoughts when I'm in nature, right? And so it's curious the impact of that. So there's so much to explore here in terms of how we can actively engage with our thinking process versus being just kind of succumbing to it.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things why having an awareness of the thinking mind is so important is that you realize that a lot of the thoughts are taking us out of the very thing that we just described. It's
Mhm.
taking us out of the ineffable state of being. It's taking us out of our bliss. It's taking us out of this deep connection to oneness that just feels so beautiful. That a lot of the times our thoughts are the interference. They're the very things that are tripping us up. They're
Mhm.
the very things that are, pulling us into a lower frequency. So we think and we know that we have thoughts. They're not going away anytime soon while we're in the body. So then how do we make our thoughts, what I say, useful thoughts versus useless thoughts? I want my thoughts to work for me. I'm not a slave to my
Mhm.
thoughts. I don't want to be a slave to my thinking mind. And again, what I said is there are people that are walking around like a dog on a leash, and every thought is pulling them like, "Oh, I'm not this, I'm not good enough, I'm that, I'm gonna fail." You're being dragged around like a dog by
Mhm.
your own thinking mind. So
Food.
that's why working with our thoughts is so key because like why not have a little bit more bliss and a little less suffering? Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so you can have
Absolutely.
both. You can have both. So maybe we could help ourselves have a little bit more joy and a little less suffering.
Yes. Yes, please. Yes, please. I don't know why I feel so compelled to ask you this, but I have to. I don't know what's coming up with this. I understand why myself, where the connection is, I think, but it's going to seem like it comes out of complete fucking left field to you probably. And that is, what thoughts do you have on non-human intelligence and it's their influence or that influence over human thinking?
Well, that's a really, you're going into a whole area that, by the way, is real in that, I mean, in my book, Time to Awaken, I explored artificial intelligence and, excuse me, transhumanism. I mean,
Mhm.
subjects that I normally would never be
Mm,
inclined to delve into, but
I love her.
we're living in such a parallel universe. There's so much going on simultaneously. I mean, we're living in these parallel universes. Like you talked about nature, we could go out in nature and connect to a gorgeous river or just see the exquisiteness of nature. And that becomes the reality that you're in. And then you've got something like the metaverse or AI or transhumanism. You're like, okay, what is that? Well, it's real because we've created such advanced technology that it exists and it's by the way it's sped up so much that we're going to see some and that's really what I want to and it's not a warning to people but I want to say look just please be aware of all the changes that are happening in the world because
Mhm.
the world is changing. So, and I hope I'm kind of going with your question. I know we're in the future, meaning I love that Einstein quote. I don't worry about the future, it's already here.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of changes that have happened, especially in the last 4 years, right? So like there's been so many changes over the last 4 years. And I think like, okay, so I'm coexisting with different people on the planet. Coexisting with people that are more like-minded to me. And then coexisting with people that are trying to shepherd in this sort of artificial intelligence and this transhumanist movement, which for those that are not versed in transhumanism, it's basically transcending our biological form and turning us into like machines and robots and creating the intelligence into these machines and robots, which is real and it's happening and it's here.
Eating.
Okay. I mean, these days people are saying things like, do you feel like there's like some otherworldly energy on the planet? Like that we're in this like, I don't know, we could again, you and I clearly could talk about a lot of things. And I say, well, I think it's existing on the planet as we are living it. There's all these different things that are happening simultaneously. So again, what is our relationship to it? And that's why, again, knowing your thoughts is so important. I really value the idea of keeping the mind open to receive information. And if you have a lot of chatter going on in your mind, and you have a lot of busy nothingness going in your mind, there's a lot of waste of good energy. You're not really going to be able to receive a lot of incredible information of how to navigate this very changing world that we're in today. So I just think it's a pretty remarkable time to be alive. There's a lot going on this planet of ours. And I think that consciousness, and I just want to talk a minute about consciousness because when I explored transhumanism, I read Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Near, and he's a former Google executive, and these guys are very futuristically into transhumanism, and I I look at guys like a Ray Kurzweil or even Elon Musk, who has SpaceX and Neuralink and all that. That's going on the planet. That's happening. It's very real. So that's not I don't want to be a robot. I don't want to be hooked up to the cloud. I don't want to be microchipped. Like that doesn't interest me. So what's curious from sort of an existential point of view, I look at a lot of what's happening on the planet with people that are really powerful enough or wealthy enough to make decisions on our behalf. And I'm like, or I watch maybe one too many Netflix dystopian series, and I'm like,
It's our take rich tech.
"What what is that? Like, why can't it be more utopian? Like, why is there all this dystopian kind of energy?" And so, again, we're all these things. We're contradictions. We've always been full of contradictions. We are the light, the dark. But what energy are we embodying? What energy is really emanating from us? And what are we contributing? Again, what I said earlier on the planet. So I don't know if that answers your question. I just think it's really interesting to be aware of this other intelligence. You can call it artificial intelligence. What I like to explore is consciousness because the advancement of these robots. I've been looking at some AI sites. I highly recommend people to check out some of these AI sites because you're like, what?
Yeah. Well, this is happening.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking at this robot that looks so human and is talking in a way that sounds like you can talk to
Oh,
Alexa or Siri and ask Alexa and Siri stuff. So, I'm more inclined to travel the journey of nature and higher human consciousness. I want to emphasize the word human. But I know that I am in the 21st century and that we are entering into this different age of a consciousness on the planet. And I think a wise traveler is going to be aware of all of it. Like we need to really be aware of everything that's going on. Again, the mindfulness practices present moment awareness, the awareness of self, the awareness of other, the awareness of our environment, and the awareness of the world. And that means all the changes that are happening. So it's a pretty powerful time to be again on this planet.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, we could continue on and on here, and it does relate to thinking, and, and I don't want to necessarily go too far off to my audience. To an extent, I've recently had some pretty powerful, earth-shattering experiences that I can only interpret as communication from beings outside of myself, ancient beings, intelligences. And I take that as legitimate because I've been provided with instructions and I've been told where things will be and they're there. And so
Right.
like this curiosity around where, if not where thoughts come from, and the influence of thoughts. And
Yes, and that's a really important thing to say because I don't wanna just park it on, artificial intelligence and transhumanism. I do and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Eric, is that the reason why it's good to lighten the mental load and make space and room,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
that information that we are able to download, that we're connecting up to whatever that is, whatever the messages are or the information that we can receive, you could call it otherworldly. It doesn't matter what we call it,
Mhm. That's right.
but if we're open to it and we are clear channels for it, the best way to be open and receptive is to declutter the mind of all of
Mhm.
its nonsense and all of its useless chatter so
Mhm.
that you can like I feel like there's a lot more interesting things to be wondering
Yeah.
than like minutia or like
Mhm.
your line going off into all these ridiculous places. You're like, okay, really? Is that really where I want to go right now? Or if you've gotten information or you've had visions, and whether you feel that it's intergalactic or other whatever you want to call it, it's got a lot of different names.
Mhm.
I just say, let's be open to receiving the information.
Wow, this has been a wonderful conversation, Ora. Wonderful.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for holding the space for it.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you describing your work or this process as a journey, because I don't know that it ever ends, as long as we're in these bodies and maybe transcending these bodies on and on forever. And that journey is always so much better. We need breaks of our own private time, but it's really wonderful sharing this journey with wonderful people and wonderful conversations.
Yes.
You have certainly inspired some different ways of thinking for myself, and I suspect my audience. And I recommend my audience go check out all these books. How many books have you written? You've mentioned three at least to us.
I've written 4 and I have one journal with it. So yeah, my most recent book is Time to Awaken. So the bookend book, Says Who, is very, very active right now. It's really like a lot of energies happening with that. And then Time to Awaken is really about waking up. So those are
Love
interesting
it.
ends. Yeah.
I will be checking out your library for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you. Absolutely. What a pleasure. What a pleasant surprise. Thank you, Aura.
my pleasure too.